Hey, I'm Vanessa. Welcome to my channel. Today we are trying to take family photos. So if you've seen my videos before, I do lots of self-portraits. So this is kind of like a self-portrait. I do the same setup. I got the remote and all of that stuff. But this time it's a little bit harder because I've got my kids in the mix. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys all of the things that I do to get this to work, and I'm wishing you the best of luck if you ever attempt this. So the first thing that I had to do is find a location that would work. And it's July, it's sunny out, and it's a little bit warm. And just so that everybody stays agreeable, it's best to find somewhere that's not too hot. So we went to a shady area. And while they are having to smack some mosquitoes, at least we're not dying of the heat. So tip number one is make sure that you are in a comfortable place, because if people are miserable, it's going to be very difficult to get them all on the same page and cooperating. And I would also say try to make this as quick as possible, especially if you're working with kids. My kids are a little bit older. They're like 11 to 17, so they can hang in there a little bit longer, but if you got youngsters, just try to make it super quick. So unfortunately for them, because I'm making this also a YouTube channel, it is going to be longer than I would like it to be, but we're doing it for you guys. So what about the mosquitoes?
The mosquitoes really bug us.
Sorry.
They really suck.
It's hot and there's bugs. So my next tip is to bribe your kids. I'm not above bribing.
That isn't even, that's not.
It's a thing. Slurpees are a bribe, but if it's not good enough, then I might have to up the ante and make it really good. Like
what?
I don't know. What else do you want with your Slurpee?
Or you just take our things away.
Donut.
I don't like donuts.
I'm not gonna punish you.
I want donuts.
Donuts are punishment.
Do the photos or die.
Alyssa wants donuts, but I find donuts punishment.
Okay, well, we'll figure out the bribe part later. The point is, if your kids are anticipating some kind of reward, they will be naturally more happy. Look at those happy faces. Pray for me. Okay, so we are at our location, which is just kind of a random shady corner of a path. And it's time to set up. Also, another tip is if you have a wagon, they're super helpful to carry all of your stuff. Right there. So the first thing that I'm doing is I'm posing my kids, and then I am going to come and pop myself in with them, and hopefully everybody will be able to muster up somewhat of a happy face. Right? Mustard it up. Be as silly as you can with it, because if they are laughing, then you're in a good place. So relish the moment and get them to mustered up facial expression. Come on, Hazel, you better catch up to the other kids. They've already got smiles.
Why are we doing condiments jokes?
Because it works for me.
I don't like condiments.
I gotta butter her up a bit. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so I'm gonna put it on burst mode so that it just goes and hopefully captures somewhat of a natural expression. No duck face, no sticky outy
I'll
tongues.
do the sticky outy tongue and duck face.
No evil laughter. Evil laugh, Hazel? Everybody got miserable because of the mosquito bites, so we took an intermission and we did the Slurpees. We will have treats. We are just in the drive-thru for donuts now, and then we will probably pick a different location that's not next to the river so that there's less mosquitoes, and get a few more.
Subscribe.
I think I did get a couple good shots, but I'm not 100% sure, so I do want to go out again later. The lighting will be better too, because go in like the more evening time. So, oh, the number one rule is to keep the kids happy. If they're not happy, it's not going to work. So, anything you can do to keep them happy.
We're spoiled.
For one day only.
Okay,
Not every day.
that's true.
We are just getting ready to head out for our second half of our family photos, but I'm filming some of the talking before we leave so that my kids are not standing around in the heat while I explain stuff, because remember, the number one rule is to keep the kids happy. I talked a little bit about the wagon. I also mentioned, you need all the regular stuff that you would for a regular self-portrait shoot, like a tripod and a remote timer, or if you're just going to use the timer on the camera, that works too. The other thing that I had with me that I didn't talk about though was the blanket, and I always bring a blanket that we can sit on. And the reason for this is because if you have something to sit on, not only is it, can it be aesthetic and bring something to the photo, but it also allows your family to have a variety of poses, and we're not super limited to just standing up poses because people don't really like to just sit in the dirt. If your family has like a super tall person and maybe you have like really young kids and you're trying to do different standing poses, it can kind of start to get difficult to fit all of those different heights in. But if you're able to have people sitting, then it makes a lot more sense. Like you would have your tallest person sitting and maybe the youngest person that's teeny tiny standing up next to them or behind them or sitting on their lap. And it can kind of even people out a little bit that way. I have the opposite problem. My kids are all older and we're like all kind of in the same height. So to add interest and avoid just having this like kind of straight line of people that are the same height, being able to sit down can kind of add some variety to where we are in the image, and that makes it much more interesting and less kind of awkward. When I see a photo of people that are kind of the same height and they're just like 1, 2, 3, 4, it kind of feels like a police lineup, like who's the perp? And I want to avoid that in my family photos as much as possible. So that's why I always like to bring a blanket. Gives us much more options and variety as far as our posing goes. Another thing that you could do that could work along the same lines is if there's a public area, a park, or after hours at the library or something that has a beautiful set of steps, even if it's just like 4 or 5 steps, that can be something where people sit and you can stagger them a little bit. But you can keep that in mind as well. It can make for a good family photo. The other thing that I want to talk about is not going to be specific to everybody's family, but just something to keep in mind for some people. My oldest has a different father than my younger two. So when I'm taking family photos, what I like to do is I also like to get a photo of just her and then a photo of my younger two together, so that like come Christmas or whatever, I can send out the photos to their dads and their dads' families. Whether or not I actually get my shit together and send Christmas cards out, that's a completely different story. But the intention is there to have them separated for their own separate sides of the families to go out to. It's also a great idea just to take like an individual shot of everybody, because we're already all done up fancy and have our clothes and blah 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 and on location. So for me to also just have my kids like, okay, you stand here, like that doesn't take a whole lot out of the shoot or a whole lot of time or effort, considering it takes so much effort to try and get the full group shot anyways. That little add-on is a whole lot of nothing compared to trying to get the family shot. So while we were on the path, right before we left, I did have my camera on burst mode, which meant that it took 10 photos right back to back. And the thing that I love about burst mode is everybody's essentially in the exact same place. The tripod's in the exact same place. The only thing that really changes is like the small micro expressions on people's faces. So what you can then do, because it's so hard to get a good shot of everybody looking great, is mix and match the bursts. And I already took a look at the photos that I took on the path, and there is a set that do well with this face swapping thing. So I am going to make a video where I show you guys how I replace myself in one of the images, because one of them, the kids are all smiling and looking great, but I don't super love my expression. And there was another one from the same burst where I liked my expression much more, but my kids kind of had funny looks. So doing the burst mode and giving yourself the option to combine these images in Photoshop is also really, really helpful when you're doing your own family portraits, because you're not there to look through and press at the exact time. You are just like crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. So burst mode might be your best friend if you have that option available to you. And don't be too intimidated about the thought of having to Photoshop a couple pictures together, because it is all set up the way that it is. It's actually fairly simple to replace one person, and the entire image still fits together. It's kind of just like a puzzle piece that's the exact same shape that you can just like pop that person's head off and pop a new one in, kind of, if you can think of it that way. Okay, so I think I've gotten through most of my yappy yap stuff, and we are ready to go out and do our kind of second attempt at these family photos. It's much warmer out, and I think we're going to be picking a location that's not quite as shady, because they really hated the mosquitoes before. So it's still going to be a little bit of a struggle, I think, trying to keep these guys happy. I might have to like doubly bribe them again, but I'll do what I have to do, because it's so much effort that I want to get something no matter what. And I don't want to just walk away from this without having what I need from it. It was not even, listen to this, it was not my idea to do this, because I actually dislike doing the whole family shoots. It is such a hassle that I would rather not. This was Hazel's idea, considering her face was so grumpy and she was so out of it. You might not believe that, but it's true. She's been bugging for like 5 days to do these family photos. I don't want to discourage you. It's worth it. It really is. But you have to understand that it is not a simple task to try and take your own family photos. It's really not. The other thing is, don't bribe your kids during the shoot. And I've learned this from doing photos of other people who were like feeding their kids Smarties during the shoot, and then they end up like slobbering red dye and having bits of chocolate in their teeth and getting candy on their shirt, and that's hard too. So save the bribes for after, and not during the shoot. During the shoot, it never seems to go well.
1, 2, 3, 4. Wayward is my fickle heart. Where would I be if it weren't for your grace, your strength? Faithful is your mighty hand, drawing me close.
Was it a good photo shoot?
You're following Hazel. Well, there's a huge gap right here, so it looks like you're the leader.
Yeah.